What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Wake and Jake College Football Show. Today is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode as we are just previewing the PAC-2, Notre Dame, and then getting into Big 12 Media Days, which happened this week. And then next few weeks, you can expect conference previews, getting into the rest of the media days as they happen. And then once we're done with conference previews, we have one last week where I will go through playoff predictions, season kind of just overview, talk about some Heisman contenders, win totals over under. And then after that, we're previewing actual football games. So season is seriously just right around the corner. Shit's starting to get real. Um, I'm excited. I hope you're excited. But yeah, let's get into it. We'll start with Big 12 Media Days. But before we do that, let's have a good wake and bake. Big 12 Media Days were this week. And I was really hoping to get something crazy, something that I could throw on Dude Are You High. But honestly, nothing that crazy was said. Deion Sanders, he was talking about how he wants there to be a salary cap in college football. Some people might say that that's crazy and should be Dude Are You High. But honestly, when you hear the reasonings why, it's hard to disagree. He was saying how the teams that are, or the schools that are paying, freshman class 25 to $30 million, um, it skews the competition. You're going to start having the exact same teams in the playoff every single year because it's the teams that are going to be spending the most more often than not. Um, and man, it is so hard to argue with him because look at Ohio State last year, won the national championship. And what was it said before the season? They had a $20 million roster or something like that. They come out and say that they have a $20 million roster, and all of a sudden they win the national championship. What do you think other schools are going to start trying to do? $25 million rosters, $30 million rosters. You know what I mean? It just keeps going up, and so then all of a sudden you have all these big schools that have the money to do that are always going to be at the top, which it already was kind of that way. It's just it was done in secret. Um, he's not wrong. I don't. I like that college football is so different from the NFL because I don't even watch the NFL. I'll watch the Super Bowl. That's about it. But I do not watch the NFL, and I love that college football is so different from it. And so adding a salary cap just makes it another step closer to being just like the NFL. But at the same time, it is hard to say that Dion is wrong and that he doesn't make some good points. Um, one one thing from Big 12 Media Days that I did consider putting as Dude Are You High, but I didn't even hate it or think it was that crazy of a thing. Scott Frost throwing a little shade at Nebraska. Um, I mean, Nebraska's not my favorite team, so I do think it's funny when anybody throws shade at them, but it's neither here nor there. What he said was, when asked about taking that job, he said, don't take the wrong job. And, people are all upset. Oh, how could he throw shade at Nebraska like that? Oh, he should never be welcome back to blah, blah, blah. Shush. Uh, Obviously, we all know Scott Frost played at Nebraska. And as we all know, he was the coach at UCF, where he is currently the coach now before Nebraska. They had a 13-0 season. And, he was thinking with his heart, not his head. Because your alma mater comes asking you to be the head coach. Man, how do you turn that down? Even if you have a good thing going at the school you're at, which he did, how do you turn that down? And he went for it. And I mean, was it a good experience? Probably not. They had a lot of one score losses that just were so heartbreaking. Did not have a good tenure at Nebraska. Now he's back at UCF. Hopefully, he can kind of get back what he had at UCF. Now that he's had that experience at Nebraska, but I don't think it was that crazy for him to say don't take the wrong job. Was it? I mean, yes, it's some of his fault, that Nebraska didn't succeed. I get that, but at the same time, he followed his heart, not his head. Can't blame him for necessarily saying that. Brett Yormark. We are going to get into more of what he said when I do my Big 12 preview, um, because he made some claims that the Big 12 should have at least two teams in the college football playoffs. And I mean, Is he wrong? We're going to kind of get into that more when we get into the Big 12 preview. But he also said that it could happen as soon as this year. I don't know about that one. But again, the Big 12 is so unpredictable. Who knows? But we are going to get into more Brett Yormark's, claims that he made at Big 12 Media Days. But I thought it was very interesting that he was saying that it could happen as soon as this year, that the Big 12 could get 2 teams in. I personally, I'm not going to say it can happen. I don't see it happening. But we'll get into that more. Like I mentioned, Notre Dame, Oregon State, Wazoo. That's all we're doing today. They get their own little mini episode. We're just going to go alphabetical. So we'll start with Notre Dame. And I think my biggest question for them is defense. It's still going to be good, but losing Al Golden to the NFL, how much of a change is that going to? How are we going to see there? Is it going to be as dominant as last year? I mean, you do lose, some guys on that side of the ball, but let's be honest, Notre Dame has the talent to back them up again. But I'm curious to see what that defense is going to be like. I kind of have a 1A and a 1B for Notre Dame, I guess, because my 1B would be, yes, this is going to be a run-first team, much like it was last year. But we saw in the playoffs, we saw in the national championship game, we even saw it during the regular season, but, they were able to rely on the run game so heavily, the passing attack. It has to be better. It does. The wide receiver room has not been great at Notre Dame the last few years. We'll see how it progresses this season, but that passing game does need to get better because yes, you have a great run game. Jeremiah Love returns. It's going to be a run first team, and it should be because they'd be stupid not to. But quarterback play. I'm not saying Riley Leonard was bad. I think the wide receiver room was bad. I do. And I think that needs to improve. Passing game needs to improve. And I'm pretty sure it's a redshirt freshman starting. I don't remember. I think it's CJ Carr, something like that. Redshirt freshman starting. Would be nice to have some weapons around him that can actually make some plays. So kind of a 1A, 1B for Notre Dame there. Can Oregon State make a bowl game this year? 5-7 last year, just missed out. Got off to like a 4-1 start, finished 1-6, not great. But could they make a bowl game? First part of the schedule is difficult. You play Oregon in that time, Texas Tech. Those are not going to be easy wins. They do play also, I think, Fresno, Cal, and Houston. I personally am a little high on Houston, so I think that one could actually be a tough game. Cal, I don't know. Oregon State definitely has a shot to win that one, and Fresno State, same. I think they have a shot to win both of those games. If they can come out of that for those first 5 games with just a couple wins, handful of wins, Oregon State definitely has a chance to make a bowl game. Back half of that schedule is not that scary. You play Washington State twice, which I love, a home and home in one season, and then just a bunch of teams all the rest of the way. So I think Oregon State could make the playoff, or not the playoffs. Holy cow, make a bowl game. But a couple things do need to be improved. That defense was not great last year. They were pretty bad. Defense needs to step up, needs to improve. But then also, you are replacing a lot on your offensive line. 4 starters, I believe, are now gone, and you're having to replace that. Offensive line and defense; those are 2 that need improvement this year. If Oregon State wants to make a bowl game, but honestly, it's on the table. They definitely could. For Washington State, I guess the real question is just going to be, how do we think South Dakota State's going to do with playing an FBS schedule? Because obviously we know Jake Dickert's gone. They hired Jimmy Rogers, South Dakota State's head coach. He comes in. Obviously, anytime a coach leaves for another job or gets fired, you're going to see a mass exodus, and you're also going to see a lot of transfers coming in. Washington State brought in 34 transfers, and 16 of them were from South Dakota State, which honestly, not a terrible thing, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. The top of the FCS can beat anyone at the bottom of the FCS or FBS. And for those who don't know, South Dakota State was at the top of the FCS for the last quite a while. Um, and playing mainly kind of like a Mountain West schedule, independent schedule. I'm going to be real curious to see how South Dakota State fares with an FBS schedule. It's going to be fun to watch. But Wazoo not bringing back a lot. 0 starters on defense, 3 on offense, and honestly, the 0 starters on defense probably not the worst thing in the world because that defense, especially the secondary, was terrible. I think they were 120 plus in passing yards allowed. Just needed a complete revamp. You bring in a head coach who was leading a great FCS program, brings in a lot of his players from that team, brings in that culture. I'm not going to say we're going to see a great Washington State team. I will say if they make a bowl game, I wouldn't be that shocked. I don't think they will, but I wouldn't be that shocked. Um, I just think it's so interesting. Head coach brings 16 of his former players with him. It's just insane. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back next week. I'm not sure who I'm doing for the first conference preview, but I will be back next week with a conference preview.